So every week I say we are live and we are global. You are in Seattle, Tom Sullivan.
I am.
And I am in Israel. We are across the country, but I feel like I've known you. I met you before. If 6 degrees, we're related. So Tom Sullivan, welcome to my virtual studio. My name is Dr. Tova Goldfein. This is TMS Roundtable, Recovery, Healing Chronic Pain and Autoimmune Symptoms. This is number 220 something broadcast, and I am one blessed human being to be sitting here with you, brave and courageous man. I just want to say before I let you talk, okay, so I want to repeat what Dr. Hanscom said to me when we were chatting on Messenger. You had done some of your healing with Dr. David Hanscom. He was one of my teachers and one of my mentors and a lovely colleague. Let me tell you what he said. He said, Tom completely changed my perspective on what is possible. That's kind of a quote I might put up on my website because, Dr. Hanscom's pretty experienced with cases, not only his own 19 symptoms. Hanscom could not cross a bridge without a panic attack.
Yeah.
So, there might be some people in the audience, but if not, this will be up on the YouTube, and we will be healing people just from meeting and talking and sharing what's possible. I always like to say everyone can heal. This is not impossible. People have a body and a brain and a mind and a soul, and none of us are victims. And you said that in your bio. I mean, you probably felt like it. So let's talk about when you first started to experience pain or have surgeries, and probably were very medically oriented. Start from the beginning and let me take you through the timeline and share with our audience of really what your journey was like.
It was brutal. The story kind of starts with an automobile accident, and then the disc bulged, and then it exploded. It fractured. And that
How old were you? How old were you when that happened?
I think I was, about 40 years old, almost 40.
Okay.
And I was a thriving businessman and kind of an extreme sport guy, and did a lot of different activities. But when the disc blew, I went into debilitating pain.
Wow.
And so the surgeon made a mistake and hit the Durasac on the first surgery. So he had to go back in the second time, and then he found more particles of this disc. And then we did the same thing on the third and the fourth. So he was still picking out pieces. And I think by the time we got to the fourth one, he was operating on my pain. He wasn't operating on my spine anymore.
So at age 40, you were living a life, a hard life, strong life, businessman. You were one of 8 children. You were living the life and everything was okay. And you had a car accident and it blew the disc and you had a couple surgeries. Okay. Then what happened?
And then the years started going on and the pain got worse, never got better. And I treated it with acupuncture, massage, all kinds of different spinal injections, psychiatrists, psychologists. I mean, I reached very, very wide trying to find some help. And I got stuck on the thought process that they, quote, they, end of quote, were going to fix me, make me better, and they being the medical community.
Well, that's what we're taught. We're all taught that.
Yeah. The anesthesiologist that did the work on me, he thought he was God, and I pretty much thought he might be, the way he carried himself. But
Good point.
As the time went on, I became more and more disabled, and then when I had all of the pain, I built up a tremendous amount of anger about my lot in life. You know, everything changed. You know, all the quality of my life went away. I couldn't physically run or ski or sail or play racquetball or play golf. I mean, I did all those things very, very actively throughout my life, and that stopped. So it made me angry, but I didn't know I was angry.
Right.
You know, I knew I was frustrated. I knew I was disappointed, but I didn't equate it to being angry. And then I had the stroke, and when I had the stroke, it messed with my mind. And when that happened, I got scared, and I was really upset that I couldn't think straight. My short-term memory was compromised, as it is still some today. And you may see me demonstrate that at some point here where I lose my spot.
You're in a safe place.
That's good. That's good. So after the stroke,
now you're only in your 40s. You're still in your 40s?
I was about 47 when I had the stroke.
Wow.
And then, that precipitated losing my business. And eventually my wife and I divorced. You know, she said I wasn't the same person that she had married. She was right. You know, what can you say? But we're friends today, so that's okay.
Happy to hear that.
But then I was so stressed, I developed a migraine syndrome. And that went on, daily migraine syndrome, and it went on for almost 5 years. So I would wake up in the morning knowing that I was going to be in worse pain soon than I was already. And that brings to mind one of the keys of me getting better was that I was able to, I'm losing my spot here. Let's go back.
Okay, we're with you. Don't worry. No stress here.
Where was
Migraines, 5 years of migraines.
Yeah, 5 years of migraines. And I did what I tell everybody not to do. I panicked. And every time I'd get up in the morning, my first thought was, how bad's the pain going to be today? And how much can I get done before I just get laid out? Wow. And so that's the way my life was for a really long time. And after I'd been in pain for 22 years and had the migraines and everything else, I gave up. I couldn't stand it. I was repeating to myself every day, all day, you're never going to get better. That was my refrain in my own mind, because I'd gone 22 years and I hadn't had a moment without pain. So I couldn't expect it to just happen. It wasn't happening for me.
You had really learned, like, we learned the pain much quicker than we can unlearn it, but we can unlearn it. And once we figure it out, we can stay unlearned. But
go ahead.
No. You were talking.
So that led to the debilitating pain in the migraines led to heavy medication, opioids, narcotics. And I would sit down with my pain management doctor once a month, and he'd bring up the menu on opioids and say, what do you want to do? Do you want to do morphine? Do you want to do Dilaudid? Do you want to do OxyContin? And I'd pick one, and he'd set the dose, and that went on and on. And so I had no clarity of thought during that time. And that's when post-stroke and I had the migraines that I started to give up. And when I gave up, I couldn't take it anymore. There was no quality of life. I didn't have, when I get up in the morning, I didn't have anything to look forward to than being in more pain. Wow. And I tried to kill myself. And fortunately, my wife was present, and she called the medics, and they saved my life. She saved my life, and they finished the job. So after I got out of the hospital from that, while I was in the hospital, I made up my mind that I was done with the opioids, the narcotics. I was all done.
Wow.
So
That
after
must have been scary because you felt like, okay, now I'm naked with this pain and I'm going to have to deal with it.
yeah, but you're also also what happens is you start getting this clarity of thought, where I hadn't been able to think straight for years because I was under the influence all the time. So
Wow.
once I came off it, I could start thinking clearly, and I was able to see
But how
that.
could you do that? Somebody will say in the audience, well, what about the pain? What'd you do with the pain? How'd you deal with the pain?
Well, I changed my perspective on the pain, and so
Wow.
I taught myself that it's not going to kill me today. It's just not. It's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill me, and I can live through that. And what I needed to do was find a way to process it, and so that actually started with Dr. Hanscom in his book, The Back in Control. So I picked up the book and I read the stories of hope. I went to his website after that and I read the stories of hope. And as I read the stories of hope, I read them from the perspective of that there can't be anybody in here that's got more pain than me. I'm looking for let's see who
Right.
solved that problem.
This can't work for me. This isn't
Right.
going to work for me.
Yeah. But the more I read about them, the more I started to think that, this is what I'm looking for, is a non-invasive way to heal myself. So then I had the good fortune of meeting a Dr. Prescott, who unfortunately has passed away now, but he was a physiatrist in California and he ran a pain clinic. So I found out about him and I went to California for a month and spent time with him.
Wow.
And he taught me how to meditate. I wasn't a meditative person when I got there, but I certainly was.
None of us are meditators. We're all on that journey.
Yeah. And but he taught me how and the importance of it. But he wouldn't let me go until I dealt with this anger thing. And we had this ongoing discussion. Tom, what are you so angry about? Doc, I'm not angry. I don't know what you're talking about. And finally he says one day, he says, well, how about that surgeon that screwed up? Aren't you a little upset with him? And I thought, yeah, actually I am. Come to think of it, I'm pretty angry with that guy, with the way that it cascaded after that. And then, there was some family things, that came up that I was harboring anger and resentment for no good reason. It was just, the luggage that you carry around. And so he helped me understand that and see that. And once I saw it, I was able to resolve the anger. I realized that I was angry about things that, slights and things that people had said or done to me over the years. And I packed them away and stored them. And, people that had wronged me or I had resentments towards, I had to fix that. So I had to process the anger. And by doing that, I was able to get better control of my mind. And I quit panicking. I got to the point where I realized what I was doing and what might happen if I continued thinking the way I was, that I'm not going to get better. And I started thinking I am going to get better. So
you were affirming something you might not have believed, but you were saying it in order for yourself to believe it.
Yes.
People don't have to believe 100%. They have to, say it and imagine it and hope for it. It's not black and white. We can convince the brain that it's safe, even if we don't feel it, because we can live with the fear. We can live. Look, you lived with a threat, but you understood that the safety was even just like, it's almost like you let go in a way.
I did let go. And I think that's a really good word to use here. And when I let go, I let the resentments go. I let the anger go. I dealt with it. There was some things that I had to forgive people for doing to me or what have you. And when I did that, all of a sudden I did a big expressive writing of that. That's when I got introduced to expressive writing. I did a series while I was in the clinic in California for a month. And
Wow.
so that got me, doing
I
the.
want to say a few words to expressive writing, because it is such a profound method and tool, and it's not easy to write. It's not comfortable. Nobody really wants to visit themselves. We're with ourselves all day.
Yeah.
But to write, it's profound. And, I've learned a lot from Hanscom about the research, but it is also a somatic method, a mind-body way of calming the brain down. Also, there's enormous opportunity to bring compassion to yourself. And last week we had a doctor who works with Dr. Lumley, who works with Dr. Schrubener. Dr. Hanscom knows these guys, and they've been studying the effects on fibromyalgia and chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about expressing yourself. And on paper, it's a neurological process that affects the brain. If I take the thought from here to here, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it's powerful. And here you're telling me probably the last thing you thought of to do, you began doing. And tell me, was it comfortable? Was it difficult? Did you burn it afterwards, which is some kinds of people do that? Did you throw it out?
I embraced it.
Wow.
I was out of options. I had no other pathway to follow. I wasn't aware of anything else. So I embraced it, and I changed my perspective on it, and I flipped it. Instead of, fighting it every day, I got smart about it.
That's it. That's it. That's Dr. Sullivan. That is, again, that is the solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The way out. That is the solution. So go ahead. So continue. So you began to journal. You learned how to meditate. So what was it like being with Tom? Because when you meditate, you're observing yourself, you're witnessing, you're letting go, you're sitting back, you're watching. What was going on with the pain at this time, let alone your thoughts?
Well, I learned or taught myself to actively meditate after Dr. Hanscom in his work had mentioned active meditation, and so I investigated that, and I took it up. And one thing I'll tell the audience, that if you're in chronic pain every day and you're debilitating pain, it's really important to calm your mind, and the way to calm your mind is to meditate. But how do you meditate when the pain is so intense? How do you get there? So what I discovered was using sound as my meditative medium.
Wow.
So I would put the headphones on, I'd crank up instrumental music, and I would meditate to that. And so I did that so often, I built myself a fountain out in my yard, and it makes music. The water makes music. And I go out there just about every morning, and I meditate to the sound. I can go to the ocean and meditate to the waves. I can go to a river and meditate to the sound of the river. But that's a really good way to distract yourself from the pain. When your head is full of music like that, or full of sound, and you keep coming back to the sound instead of trying to quiet your mind, you're active with it, and it works.
Good one. So profound. Not even about, I'm going to have someone in June, a sound therapist, and we know this research, but then I started looking into it, and it's everything, but it's nothing but new. It's like, it's not new age. I thought it was new age. I use that a lot. And there's research that it can change the way my blood flows, that you play certain, theta wave or a beta wave, or even just a certain sound, and the blood will react, because it's frequencies, and medicine is a frequency, and x-ray is a frequency, and ultrasound's a frequency, and tension is a frequency. So we're talking about healing. We're talking about the relationship between the frequency and the body, and we are energy. And so talk a little bit more about, because we talked about energy before this show. Tell me about,
Well, we
again,
did. And
at this
so,
point, when you were meditating, would you see your pain changing?
no, it was obliterated for moment, for the time of the active meditation, the pain was obliterated. I wasn't feeling the pain at all. And
Wow.
it was gone. And of course, at the end of the meditation, you're back where you started, but you've discovered a way to process it, to deal with it.
Wow.
And that worked really, really well for me. And so going back to the Dr. Prescott in California, after he helped me process my anger, then I was ready for the next step. And the next step was learning to deeply meditate. And I took to it like a fish to water. I had
Wow.
no problem with it. And I'll never forget, he had been inviting me to meditate and do yoga with the group over a period of the three of the 4 weeks I was there. And I had, no, that's not for me. I don't know how to meditate, and I don't know about this yoga stuff. And, it was like that. But I wanted to get better. And so I saw people around me feeling better. So I went into the studio with him, and he cranked the music. And he cranked the music to the point where you could hear him, talking you through the relaxation from head to toe. And then I drifted off, and I went into an altered state of consciousness. I went into a very deep meditation. Unfortunately, I've never been able to get back there, but it was a remarkable experience. And so
Wow.
I went into this really into this darkness, into this blackness. And I saw this picture in my mind of a gray cloud around my center at my belt line. And that's where my main pain was at my low back. And I see this cloud of gray, and it comes up through the top of my head. It just starts at my waist, and it goes up, and I see it go out through the top of my head. Then I came to. The meditation was over, and I jumped up onto both feet from a lying position. I can't do that, Dr. Tova. I can't do that. Physically, if I sat down and tried to do it, I can't do that.
Wow.
But I did. I bounced up, and I grabbed the doc and I hugged him. And he said, pain's gone. So I had been seeing some improvement after I had done the process the anger. And this was the crux pitch to it, was the deep meditation. And I've been good to go for, I don't know how many years now, 10 years.
So you might not get that deep, but you're able to access, I think, that place in your parasympathetic nervous system that's rest and digest, or calming and compassionate. And so what else? So you're not, so tell us more. So you haven't been able to access that deep place, but you're able. What's going on now in your body? I mean, you have been through so much, invasive surgeries and heart attacks and strokes. And I don't remember hearing about the headaches. So thank you for sharing that. And so
Yeah.
what's been going on in the last 5 years of your life? And how is your meditation?
Well, that's a good one. So and this will show, that I'm not infallible. I have this meditative place, call it a shrine, call it what you will. It's outdoors. It's around my fountain. There was a amphitheater of green trees around it, and it was my place. And the trees were owned by my neighbor, and he cut them down one day, and it was my sanctuary, if you will. And he destroyed my sanctuary by cutting down his trees, and I was enraged. I was beside myself. And I got to talking to Dr. Hanscom, and he says, you're obviously pretty mad. I'd say you're enraged. And I said, yeah, you are. I am. And he says, when are you going to process it? And I said, well, I kind of like being angry at him right now. So I don't have an immediate plan to process this. Then I got sick. I got sick, and I went back into the abyss, and I was in the hole for, I don't know, week, 2 weeks. I don't know how long. But then I came around one day and was doing my meditation. I thought, you idiot, why are you doing this? And you got to let it go. You got to process it. And as Dr. Hanscom says, we need to flip the switch. So I flipped the switch. I said to myself, well, it's his property. It's his trees. He can do what he wants with them. It's completely out of my control. And so why am I angry about it? Getting angry is not going to change my control perspective or change his mind.
Yeah.
So, there you are. I came back out of it pretty readily or pretty quickly. But, I said I got sick. I developed a tear duct problem. And so they actually had to go do surgery and put in a new tear duct because the other one stopped working, and it was burning my eyes, and it was very uncomfortable.
So interesting.
But then I had my second stroke, and I threw a blood clot, and it blocked my right renal artery, and I ended up with about 50% damaged kidney because it took a while to get to the hospital, figure it out, give me the medicine that I needed to dissolve the clot.
Wow.
I paid for that one. I paid for, being stubborn.
Well, when you say process, let's go into that a little bit, because rage and anger is a big thing, and it could be coming from the most calmest place, but inside there's a war. So what do you mean you process? Did you start journaling? Did you meditate more? Did you, just like process is something like, did you let go? Did you accept? Did you have compassion for yourself?
Yeah.
I want to hear.
I accepted it. That's what I did. Maybe a more rational human being wouldn't have gone where I went, but be that
no judgment in my studio. No judging.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And one thing that I did was I forgave him. In my mind, I thought, it's on me. It's not on you.
Wow.
And so I got over it. And so what I mean when I say you process it is you consciously bring it up to mind about whatever the resentment or the anger of the situation was, and you make a conscious decision about whether or not you want to continue to pursue it the way you've been pursuing it. So you have to let go. You have to flip the switch, let go, forgive, all three combined. That'll get you. That is the process right there.
So yeah, it's fascinating. It's so wonderful, and you're explaining it very, succinctly. Like the word is, you're really. I like when you're bringing it down to like kindergarten level. Like we can all really do this. We all have anger. We all have, we all don't like things. We all hold grudges, but most of all, what happens is it ends up coming out on you, like the poor neighbor. Even if he did something to you, it's still your responsibility. And so
It is.
you were responding to the various players in your life and the things in your life. But isn't it fascinating that you had these physical symptoms that were so real?
Yes.
And now you don't have them?
Done with that. And I wasn't. But we use the word process, but the process, like I just said, is it's easier said than done to clear these things with the people that you think have wronged you, but it's completely within your own power to do it. You make a conscious decision. Am I going to forgive this person? Am I going to forget about this? Am I going to let it go? Am I going to move on? And if you can do all that, that is the process. Yeah. And then when you get a chance to move on, then you clear it out of your mind. It's behind you. Every once in a while, it'll come back up, You'll
Yeah.
Jimmy's name or whatever will pop into your mind. You go, oh, well, that was then, this is now, and you move on.
Well, even with trauma, it's, the trauma is real. It's in our muscles, it's in our body, it's in our DNA. But what the research is that our experience of the trauma is what we can heal, what we can process. I don't like the word process. We can accept and also see how it's hurting us. Again, we all have traumas because we're human beings. But if that trauma is like a blood clot stopping you from moving, you have that ability to turn the switch. Like
well, yeah,
Hanscom
you pick it. You pick your purpose. It's up to you.
Right. But I'm going to role play with you, but I'm angry, but the person hurt me. The person did me wrong. The person, like how can I forgive? How can I forget? And the question is, I'm going to answer that first, and I want your answer. You can keep it in your mind. You don't have to forget. You don't even have to forgive, but just see how it's hurting you. Put it into perspective. Like, you don't even have to write a nasty letter. Just if it's stopping you from moving on, then you're giving that person power.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. About
well,
how
you have the opportunity to choose your response. That's what this is all about, is maintaining control of your mind and your self-talk and all the rest of it. And really going through life, when the guy cuts you off on the freeway on the way home, by the time you get home, you don't remember it. You're not thinking about it, but it sure made you mad when it happened. But you chose to process it and let it go because the guy just drove off up the highway and he's not going to bother you anymore.
But how about your accident? I mean, like, you had to. Look,
I had to
there
forgive.
are people that we meet, and I know Dr. Hanscom, we meet people who've had terrible traumas done to them.
Yeah.
Terrible traumas. And I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to say, how do you move on with your life? How do you do that? And there are many ways that we, heal our traumas and reclaim our little child and rescue the child that was abandoned. The question is, now we have, like Rose would say, put on your big girl pants.
Yeah.
And you had to grow up. I mean, you were a child, a big family, and I don't know what kind of attention you got or didn't get, but you had a charmed life and everything was going great. And then this accident happened, and then this happened, you probably felt like you said in your bio, a real victim. How do people stop feeling like a victim? What would you say to people who are acting like a victim because they really believe they are? What would you say to them, Tom?
Take responsibility for your own actions and your own thought process. Look at it from the standpoint of, it's not about me. It's instead of blaming everybody on everything, I blame mine on the lady that caused the accident. I blame my fear or my pain on the doctor, the neurosurgeon that did the 4 surgeries. I had other surgeries that were botched, so I had a lot of ammunition there for people to be mad at. But one thing that I think is really important that a lot of people miss in this process is they need to forgive themselves. You can sit down and do the expressive writing every day, but if you don't attend to how you actually feel about yourself and forgiving yourself for doing whatever, then you're not fully processing it. And it can be a really big step.
I think for some people, it takes a lifetime, and that's okay. I always say, take your lifetime in this forgiving process. And one of Dr. Hanscom's colleagues, and he was in the movie Love Heals, is Fred Luskin wrote a book, Forgive for Good.
Yeah.
And I guess you read that. Did you read that book? Because forgiveness is a chemical reaction.
Yes.
And I always like to say, even if you can still hate the person, but forgive the situation because it's hurting you. You know, like, I'm not saying you have to love the person, but, you know,
I got one of those.
go ahead. Go ahead. Let's talk about it. Come
I got
on.
one of those,
Put it out there. Bring it out on the table.
you know, I never use the word hate, and I never have hated anybody in my life, but I have an extreme dislike of this person. And at times he's on the periphery of my life because we have common friends and almost family. And so he stands out as one that really got me good. And I just think, it's not my problem. It's his problem. It's the way that he thinks. It's the way that he approaches stuff. And I don't agree with it. And it's easy for me to flip the switch on him and say, it's fine. It's okay. I don't care anymore, really.
Yeah.
Don't bother me. I'm moving on.
Yeah, and you almost change your thought process. Like,
You do.
years ago, it would have enraged you, and you've learned to put yourself first in a way. I mean, like, it's not like you put yourself first and you're being selfish. You put yourself first, Tom, because you knew that if you took care of yourself, everybody else in your life would benefit.
Yes. Yeah.
So emotionally, what's it feel like to be compassionate to yourself and loving and thoughtful and mindful? What's that like? You probably more didn't see that growing up.
No, I didn't see that growing up, but it's fulfilling. It's very enlightening, but it's very fulfilling. Now that I'm well past my years of chronic pain, I get to do things like this with you that'll help other people. And I take the line that if I can do it, you can do it. I mean, I was way far gone. I was hurting, in a big way, but I was able to fix it. And if I can fix all of that, then, there's probably a good chance that you can fix yours as well. And if I can help you do that, I'd love to. That's my thing in life now, is to give back and help people.
Wow. Wow. So besides journaling, expressive writing, meditating
Meditating.
in a deep way and trying to connect to the music and focus on the music, which helps to calm your brain, you're also not focused and putting a spotlight on the sensations. What other recommendations would you share with the audience about what helped you to let go and trust? Because you tried to kill yourself because the pain was so great.
I
So
did.
it's kind of a major extreme shift, the pendulum. So
Hmm.
what else did you do? What else do you have to keep doing to keep things in motion?
That's a really good, that's a good question, but I tried to stay connected with other people and, friends and relatives. I didn't do that at all when I was in pain. Even though I was obsessed with it, and I'd call you and I'd complain about it and I'd talk about it all the time, which is what Dr. Hanscom says, don't do that, don't isolate, don't become reclusive. Well, I did all of that, and that just, it doesn't help. You can't do that and expect to get better.
Yeah. So what else are you doing besides meditating and journaling? Did you get back into exercise? Did
Yes.
you
Yeah. I got into exercise in a big way. I started, I can't run, but I can walk, and I was, when I came back from the desert, and then, probably 1 year, 2 years later, when I actually contacted Dr. Hanscom and we met, by that time I had started an exercise routine where I'd walk every day, I'd swim 5 days a week, and I'd do yoga. And
wow.
if my wife makes sure that my diet's correct,
Good
so
for you.
I don't have to watch my diet; she watches it for me.
Right.
But
Amazing.
I also did some strength training, so my body had been ignored for years because I hurt so much. I didn't want it. I didn't want to exercise. I didn't want to try to build my strength. I just wanted to conserve my strength so I could deal with the pain today.
Wow. And so you don't have any back pain.
I wake up sometimes in the morning with a familiar pain, but I wake up in confidence. I know that I'm going to process that this morning, and I know it's not going to be chronic, and I know it's not going to stay. And as long as it wasn't like the guy next door that cut my trees, where I really became enraged, I'm okay.
He was a gift. He was a messenger.
Yes, he was, and it's the pain that I get now. It's not debilitating. It's not chronic. It's old age. And it's also the result of 34 surgeries. I mean, I have a certain amount of scar tissue that requires a certain amount of stretching and
yeah, but the research is there's no pain fibers in scar tissue, so it's not the scar tissue even.
It's not.
It's learned. It's just learned, sensitive, hypervigilant nervous system.
Okay.
Still protecting you. The brain is doing a job. The brain is always going to lean towards protective mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's this primal brain. So I imagine there's more brain studying that I love teaching people about the brain. And this is what I didn't even learn in chiropractic schools, so much about the brain and the sympathetic nervous system. And I think what you do when you wake up in the morning and experience that ache or the middle of the night, or you immediately bring safety and calm. And then that compassionate piece just doesn't come from your wife and feeding you. You bring compassion, you bring, hope. I think that's just happening automatically. You don't have to rethink that wheel. You learned a new habit. You learned a new pathway. You're firing and wiring differently. This is what I think Hanscom would say about what happened to you. And I want to say to the audience, Dr. Hanscom said to me this morning, we were messaging, and he knew Tom was going to be on the show, and he had met Tom and interviewed Tom on his podcast. And he said to me, Tom, I want to read it quote for quote. He said, Tom, hold on. Tom completely changed my perspective on what is possible when it comes to healing. I'm just blown away by Dr. Dr. David Hanscom Humble saying he's met some really amazing stories of hope, but your story is unbelievable. So wait, headaches, migraines, 2 strokes, 3 heart attacks, 34 surgeries, and there's probably other things in there. And so let me ask you a question. We're going to round up in a little bit, but if anyone in the audience wants to ask you anything, please do. But what was it uncomfortable for you to feel your feelings growing up? Was it uncomfortable for you to express yourself with your first wife and now your second wife? Like, what did you grow up learning about emotions? Because this is a key for some people when it comes to what do my emotions have to do with it, Doc? And it's like everything.
When I was one of 8 and I was largely ignored. So I left home when I was 17 and I went on and just did my own thing. But I easily expressed myself, and it wasn't always welcome the way that I expressed myself, but I've never been shy about.
You were the sensitive one.
Pardon me?
You were the sensitive one.
I don't know if I was the sensitive one so much, but I was fiercely independent. Let's put it that way.
Fearless.
I was fearless. There's no question. I mean, that's, I've raced across the ocean twice, and I've climbed mountains and rock climb and jumped out of airplanes. I mean, I was fearless to
Look how scared you were of the pain.
What's that?
Look how scared you were of the pain.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Wow. Yeah. I always find that you have overcome so much adversity, and then this pain comes to you and you're like, I can't deal with this sensation. And thank God you've learned that pain is an emotion. Chronic pain is an emotion. Mm-hmm. If I step on your toe, it's going to be acute pain. That's processed here. But chronic pain is processed here. And it's processed where we process emotions. And chronic pain is an emotion. It's just mind-boggling to me every time I say it. How do you feel when I say that?
Say it again.
Pain is an emotion.
Yes.
Chronic pain is an
Yeah, it
emotion.
is. Yeah, I was really good at demonstrating that emotion, but as I grew up, I stifled it all. And I actually had an ulcer by the time I was in high school.
Wow, what a sign, TMS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't express much emotion for my
Wow.
youth.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing process. And I mean, God, I can't imagine what you went through. I mean, I'm so happy to meet you on the other end. And I imagine, you know, just the process. I mean, how many years was it? Something
22,
like 22 years
22
from,
years of chronic pain.
so you were 40 when you had the accident, and now
Yep.
you're in your 60s.
Yep. No, I'm 70 now, but
Well, you're not old, by the way.
right. I'm just 70.
It's just 70. It's just a number. So you are still meditating, you're still journaling, you're exercising, you're stretching, you're breathing deeply.
And I still get angry at times, and I still get upset. And sometimes I obsess over things, but
Oh, that
I
sounds
know that
pretty
I've
good.
done that. And
That sounds
one point that I missed talking about earlier that I don't want to let go is that Dr. Hanscom teaches us that the brain can rewire itself and rewire around the pain circuits that you've developed. Well, I wasn't so sure about that, when I first became aware of it. But I'm living proof of it because I had a stroke and I had to rewire in order to come back out of it. So I'm sitting here, as a witness that this works. It absolutely works. You have to do the work.
And so Zach, it's actually Zachary, Dr. Zachary, he's actually a doctor of chiropractic and a colleague of mine for 20 something years, maybe even more, 30 years maybe. But he wants to know, how do you express your emotion properly now? Like, how do you express your emotion?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Gosh.
You talk about it? Do you journal about it? Do you scream at the ocean? You talk about it?
I talk about it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I've
Do you,
developed that habit.
yeah, it's
But
good.
it's a habit that came from being in pain too, because you talk about
Yeah.
it all the time,
Do
right?
you feel like you need to journal
No,
in order?
I've never really been I'm not a good journaler. When I say I do my expressive writing, I'll get up in the morning sometimes and I'll turn the computer on and I'll unload, then I'll just delete it and move on with the day. It takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, depending on if I was a good boy or bad boy the day before.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Do you feel like you tell yourself the truth, like you're really honest with yourself?
I try that. I try to be that way all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I'm saying on the record, usually the writing on the computer is not effective, but I think where you're at in your maintenance, it's
Yeah.
okay. For someone who's in pain, I would suggest to write on the paper.
I would too.
Yeah, and I find most people say, well, it's not working for me, doc. I didn't work for me. And to me, it's like, it's not about, the journaling isn't going to equal no pain. It's going to
Correct.
equal you walking the road from your conscious mind to your unconscious mind, which is where we need to be in order for the brain. I mean, this is what you did. You opened up your heart in a way. You understood what was in your unconscious mind. You dealt with the monster under the bed, which was just little Tommy. Tell me about little Tommy.
What about him?
Tell me about little Tommy.
I mean, like when I was a kid, or I don't
Yeah,
understand
just
the.
know a few things about you. Like you grew up. You said you left home. you
School
know.
was no problem. I had no issues at school, performing or, getting grades, because if I hadn't, then my dad would punish me. But I was very mischievous,
Wow.
very adventurous. My mom had, mom, dad, they had 8 kids, and we all went to Catholic schools, and the principal would call mom after school, and she would answer by saying, "What did Tom do this time?"
Oh my God.
It wasn't, "What did Bill, Mike, Dan, Patty, Eileen, what did they do?" It was, "Well, what did he do this time?"
No way.
Yeah. But, it
Oh
drew
my God.
attention to me, and I thrived with that. I
Wow.
wasn't the class clown, but I was a pretty funny
Right.
guy.
Right. Did you throw a match into the trash can and light the papers in the trash can?
No, I wasn't a vandal. I might help put one of our classmates in the trash can and try to get the lid on, but no, I wasn't pyromaniac or in that realm.
I think what you're also sharing with us is the sense of humor. And this
Yeah.
is a big thing in Dr. Hanscom's work about play, about the playfulness and play, and that, being in pain, healing pain is a serious thing. It doesn't have to be so serious. It can be, a relationship, a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you grow up and you have unhealthy relationships, we just decide to have this relationship with our pain that's unhealthy. And then it becomes this deep, deep, dark place, the abyss.
That's me. That was me. Yeah, that was definitely me.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, what do you want to leave our listeners and our YouTube listeners? Because I hope that people are subscribing to the YouTube channel. This is number 220 something broadcast. And I'm not slowing down. I'm not retiring. Maybe I'll come to Seattle and ride a boat with you, or maybe you'll come to Israel and we'll sail the Mediterranean. Invite your wife.
Right on. Yep.
And so tell me, what do you want to leave with our listeners? Inspiring,
Hope.
educating,
Hope.
and hope.
Hope is the it's the main ingredient here. I gave up. I gave up all hope, and it almost killed me. And if you give up hope, you give up today and you give up tomorrow. And there's, hope's a really simple concept. It's the expectation that of an event coming that is not a negative event. It's something pleasurable. It's real quick. I was walking one day, and there's this lady around town that paints little rocks, rocks about that size, and she'll make a ladybug out of one, and one she wrote the word hope on it. And I noticed it one day as I was walking by this planter down where I walk, and I knew that she had put that there for me. So I put it in my pocket and I took it home and I put it next to my vanity, where I see it every morning and every night. And it grounds me. It reminds me of where I was and where I am now. So a neighbor has cancer, and he's not going to survive, and he's deteriorating. And I don't know him all that well, but I knew what the story was. And I went over and told him my story from beginning to end. And then I gave him the rock.
Wow.
So he writes to me every once in a while.
Wow.
Thank you for the hope.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. I think we're talking about a relationship with our human body and understanding that, we have this temple. I call it a temple that houses our soul. And, we're not always taught to take care of it and what to do. And then we trust the doctors, and I'm not bashing doctors. I fight with Dr. Hanscom. He always wants to bash the doctors, but I don't want to bash the doctors. They do a good job, but there's so many people like you with, these medically unexplained symptoms, and some people get surgery and they get better and some people don't. But I feel that, pain is there to teach us something. Chronic pain and disease, there's a lesson. And if we flip it like that, say, what am I here to learn? What am I here to learn? I think you change the relationship. And last week we talked about it's never the stress in our life, it's the relationship we have with the stress.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. When I said, how'd you do it, Tom? I changed my mind. That's how I always open with. I changed my mind. I changed my mind that I wasn't going to die of chronic pain. I wasn't going to let it run my life anymore. And I was going to go out and find a way to fight it, to fix it, to make it go away. And I'm, when I get going on a mission, I'm pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, it's serving you. It's serving you now. It's not hurting you. It's wiring and firing, and your neurons are just happy neurons. Yeah. And so I leave this week with honor and blessings that I found you and that you responded. I mean, not everybody wants to talk about their story, and that's okay. And people, I always say, you don't have to be healed to be in my broadcast or to be sharing your story. It's really a journey, and I don't think it's over for you, Tom. I think you're going to fall and get up and fall and get up.
Yeah,
I think you're going to get up, even with a bloody knee.
Well, that's the thing about grit. You always get up. You brush yourself off, but you keep putting one foot in front of the other. You do it continuously. You fall down, you get back up, and you keep going.
You are an inspiration. And I'm going to ordain you to be a rabbi, a priest, an imam. You could do it. You could stand up there on that mountain.
I'm not perfect. I've fallen down, since I was able to resolve the pain. I trip and fall just like anybody else, but a lot of people don't want to get up. When I had the migraines, I could have stayed in bed in the fetal position all day long, but I refused to do that. I tried to conduct myself, get up and put.
That's what you told me. You told me you got up, you would get dressed, you would act like you were going to go to work. And I think the brain was like, something's going on here. Mm-hmm. Talk about that for a minute. You get up.
That was really hard.
Go ahead. What would you do?
What I do?
What would you do? You would act like you didn't go to work, but you would get up and you'd get dressed and you'd brush your teeth and
you'd have household chores to do or whatever, and you'd try to do them until you were debilitated to the point where you can't physically continue. That was it.
Wow. Amazing. So listen, if you ever feel the need to express and you want to talk about that neighbor with the trees again, you just come right on this broadcast and you say, Doc, I need to express myself, and I'll be like, right here, let's do it. This is the plan.
No, it's been great. I've enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful for people.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. And if people want your email, can I give it to them?
Oh yeah, sure. I see Gina has posted 4 times her and I should talk. So yeah, if she wants to contact me.
Gina's a tough one. Gina's holding out. Gina's pretty tough. If she wants to contact you, you can take her on.
I'll talk.
Take her on. So Tom, bless your heart. Bless your big heart. Bless your incredibly elevated soul. And we will meet again. Remember this face. We will meet again.
I'm sure we will. I do know that we've known each other before.
I'm sure we have. Some kind of past life.
Very comfortable with
and I'm so grateful that and I will send you a copy of this. You can send it to your other 7 and 8 sisters.
Yeah.
And share. And we'll have a sequel. We'll bring you back for part 2.
Okay.
Wish you well. All the best.
You.
Good night, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next week. If you want to see the recording or send it to anyone, it'll be up on the subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm such a terrible businesswoman. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom. 1 second.